Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me again today. I am sitting in a hotel room in Danville, Virginia, and I've been working on this painting already for, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half or something like that this morning, and enjoying very much woo, the peace and quiet of working on the painting. Last night the band was very good, and oh my goodness, it was loud. And so if you tuned in last night, and wondered why there was no sound, I'm glad I had, honestly, the presence of mind to figure out, oh yeah, just plug in half my microphone to kill the internal sound of the camera, and don't plug in the other half, so in effect there was no sound, which is very, of course, very unusual. So I'm down to just one thing on this painting, and that is Chris, the groom, Chris's face. And perhaps if you've watched me very often, you've seen me use this trick before. Let me show you what that is. What is it we're looking at? I am using an app. Let's see if I can get this in front of you. This one right here. Hello, Mark Toomey. Oh my goodness, 3:50 a.m. on night shift. Bless you. Well, I'm glad to give you company. So this app right here called Photo Collage. And when you open it up, thank you, Nancy. Appreciate that. I am pretty happy with it. When I first got it out this morning, I thought maybe I don't need to do anything, but I'm glad that I have. So you can. I'm just showing you. I take a photograph of the painting, so a photograph of her face and a photograph of his face, and then I'll do it here really quickly for you. It's a very helpful tool. So here's a photograph of of the painting, right? And then I get a photograph of him. It's all the way down here, somewhere right there. And not every collage app works. You have to be able to adjust the size of each one without changing the ratio. Some collage apps don't do that well. Hang on just a second. Let me move you guys so that I can. Here's a nice shot of my palette. All right. So then I'm going to save that.
It's more than a receipt.
Oh, I got a commercial.
It's our promise.
Come on.
To keep fresh food.
Wow, that was painful. And then, so I saved that to my gallery. Okay, since I've gone this far, I might as well go the rest of the way. So that's what I just created just now. Photo of my painting and the photo itself. Then this is important. So now I'm in my photo gallery app. Transform, and I flip horizontal. So do you understand? This is now a mirror image of that. So it's as old-fashioned a technique as the mirror. It's just I'm using a phone to create the mirror image. And then I create another collage going this way, and this is the mirror image, and this is the non-mirror, the regular image. So, and I'm assuming that anybody that's ever done portraits, you understand the value of the mirror, right? Because after working on a portrait for any length of time, 15-20 minutes, after working on a portrait for just a short time, you become what I call portrait blind. You can no longer see your mistakes. But when you see them in a mirror, you go, oh my goodness. So that's a very, very, very serious warning. That's not just a teaching, my friends. That is a warning. Any of you who want to do portraits, and if you don't use a mirror, just trust me, the first time you look at your image in a mirror, if you've never done it before, you will be shocked, dismayed. You'll want to hang up your brushes. You'll want to quit, probably. But don't. Just use the mirror as a tool. So that's what I'm doing. So in this image here, I can see my mistakes better. Let me start listing some of them for you. Shall I? Okay. Come on. Let's zoom in here. And let me get the right angle. There we go. All right. So some of the mistakes. The first one I already started is I realized that the back of his head needs to be, I need to carve some off. I've actually already done that. So you might have seen me doing what I picked up. His ear needs to be a little higher. His this part of his hairline doesn't work. I'm not going to go through all of these. The part in his head right there, scalp, needs to be stronger over here. His eyelash darkness is too big and not quite at the right angle. His nose needs to be a little more round, going to our right a little bit. Now, with every one of these, and the main one is his chin needs to come down further. His face is longer than what I've indicated. I don't want to fix that. Now, with every, so let's go back to, let's say, his eyelashes, and I go, ooh, his eyelashes, I need to carve them up. But it's hard to go from this to directly to this, right? Because this is a mirror image. So with every time I see something I need to change here, let's just focus on the eyelashes. I go, oh, they're just too big, they're too long, and they come down too far. So then I go to this image and compare it, and again see it twice and go, oh yeah, that's right. His eyelashes go back into his head too far, so I need to carve them this way, and I need to carve them up. So do you see how that helps, how that works? So I'll let you watch me for just a minute. I have two really just one really good brush here in this kit today. One Winsor Newton Series 7. I'm really ready for another one. So I'm going to mix up some paint. All this other stuff that you see here is leftover mixes from fixing Lindsay, the bride's face. I got her all fixed already this morning. I'm much happier with her. Well, I was fairly happy with it. I was, like I said, when I got to painting out the car this morning, I said, oh, not bad. Maybe I don't need to do anything. But then when I did the trick I just showed you, when I did this trick with her face, I went, oh, doggone. There's several things I needed to fix. So I might be, and I'm very serious about this, I might be a very lousy portrait painter, in that I have to use all of these tricks. That's a distinct possibility. My only defense will be I get the job done, and by hook or by crook, one way or the other, I get the job done. So let's do it. It's real simple here. Eyelashes, eye comes back too far, so I just shortened it, and it's a little bit too deep, so I'm shaving it up. Talk about fussy. Oh, and one more thing. Here, my wife actually ran out to a Dollar Tree or something this morning and bought me a pair of 3.5X. How do you like that? Is that a good look? Good fashion? Huh? Wearing two pairs of glasses at the same time. Because I was saying to her, I was kind of complaining, the way you do. It's like, oh man, you know what? Because at home lately, I've started, when I'm doing these bridal portraits, the wedding portraits that are so stinking small, I've discovered that this helps, but I haven't added it to my permanent kit yet. So she said, "Well, I'll go get you some." So what a great sweetheart. So she went out and got me some glasses. Okay, now the nose, a little bit larger, a little more rounded, bulbous at the end, just a tiny bit. That'll do. Man, but it's amazing how much of difference these glasses make. It's like, oh yeah, here, this notch right here, that doesn't need to be there. I know you guys can't even see what I'm doing, it's so small. Now what else? Yeah, there's a, I'm gonna say there's a slight light on the bottom of his, top of his bottom lip. We can't really see it in the photograph because in the photograph he's got light behind him. Anyway, okay, here we go. More changes, more changes. Give me some green here. So when I'm painting like this, I use, try to remember to use just enough liquid to help the paint flow. I don't, I'm not doing glazes. I'm doing, of course, opaque layers of paint, but I use just enough liquid to let it flow, help it, make sure it flows well. Okay, I'm going to stop that right there because I know the real big change on his face is actually his chin needs to be lengthened. I've made a real happy discovery. This is a kind of a funny one. I've told you, perhaps, if you regulars, that I've discovered that I really enjoy having some student grade raw umber on my palette because I use it as my go-to color killer. You know, there's many times that you've got just the right color, you've mixed it up just right, but man, it's just a little too chroma, a little too high key, just a little too bright. All those words mean the same thing essentially. And it's like, oh man, I just need to kill it down, just knock it down just a little bit. So I have found that raw umber for me is the perfect. I don't want to do black. That's too powerful. Anyway, so I have this, and then of all things, I discovered that student grade raw umber, cheap raw umber was better because the good stuff is too potent, too powerful, and you have to be really careful. And when I'm painting in a hurry, I don't want to be careful. I just want to dab my brush in it. So I've told you that. That's not my point. The point what I want to make right now is I've also discovered that at least this is what's the name of it? Soho, made by Jerry's Artorama. Very cheap student grade oil paint. You know, no, this I'm being facetious. No self-respecting professional artist would have Soho paint on their palette. Being is sarcastic. But I've also discovered another funny little happy accident discovery. I've also discovered that the student grade raw umber. Hang on just a second. Oh yeah, the shape in front of his ear is not correct. The flesh tone in front of his ear. I've also discovered that it's a great color for brown, like for your basic brown human hair. Now that's really weird because now if there's any beginner students listening to me, plug your ears because I would be I'm going to be giving you a gigantic wrong impression about what it means to paint. You don't buy a tube of paint, like, oh, I've got to paint a pumpkin, so you buy orange paint, to paint the pumpkin. That, yeah, you guys all know that, but if there's a beginner, he doesn't know that. She doesn't know that. We're not supposed to be looking for a tube of paint that is just the right color. But here's the funny part. I'm finding that this student grade raw umber is like the best starter color for brown human hair. Like there's a lot of raw umber here, and in his beard. It's like shortcut. Don't even have to mix anything. Just grab straight on the brush, straight out of the tube, raw umber. I always now you can laugh at me too. I always laugh at myself when I'm doing these wedding portraits. You know, and you can see how big they are. His head, 2 thumbs, so it's pretty small, really small, ridiculously small. And I usually am railing against tongue painting, right? I'm usually saying, no, don't do that nasty tongue painting stuff. And here I am with 2 pairs of glasses on, holding the brush in the death control grip, doing tongue painting, like in the extreme. So the rule is don't tongue paint. And you newcomers, what does tongue paint mean? It means that's what tongue painting is. For those of you who are new. And no, you really do not want to paint that way. But here I am doing it like crazy. So the fact is, every rule can be broken, even that one. Every rule can be broken if there's a mitigating factor or some rule that goes the other direction. In this case, okay, if you're doing portraits that are an inch tall, you have to tongue paint. There's no other way around it. So there you go. But you regulars know I normally don't. All right, he's looking better. Look at how I'm holding that brush. Isn't that just a hoot, honestly. Another tool device that I very, after last night in particular, I'm very anxious to create another invention, if you will, another piece of equipment, and it is something that can hold this phone, and as you see, I've got it velcroed to a charger, because you can't hold a phone up like this, as I did last night for 3 hours nonstop without the battery runs down. So it has to be attached to a charger. So I want a device. I want a phone holder, a firm that I can put like this and then paint with 2 hands. It really does. It irritates the fire in me to do what I was doing last night and what I'm doing right now, which is painting with 1 hand. I mean, it's almost painful to me. And sometimes I'll put it down and try to hold it with my right hand and paint with my left, but that doesn't work either. So there you go. Do you feel bad for me? I hope so. That's the whole point of this broadcast, is to make you feel not really. So that is a piece of equipment I am looking forward to inventing, constructing. It has to attach to my easel, of course, in some way. So that will make life a little bit better. But life's a little bit better right now because I've got 2 pairs of glasses on. I bet you my optometrist, I bet you they could make a pair of glasses for me. So I wouldn't have to wear 2 at the same time. You're supposed to sort of super magnifying, but they still had my prescription in it. Okay, one more thing, I'm seeing. Boy, this is good to be able to see stuff and fix it. I'm glad to see my mistakes, because then I can fix them. This bottom lip out here comes out just a 1/100th of an inch too far. All right, and as everybody knows, whoops, his eyebrow was too big. So not only was his or his eyelashes, his eye went back too far. His eyebrow does too, now that I look more carefully. In fact, you know, I think that's that phrase right there. You could write that phrase over all, in my opinion, over all portrait. The whole process of portraiture. The whole process could be summarized as, oh, whoops, now that I look more carefully, I see that blank. that's what that's what you're doing the entire time. Now that I look more carefully, I see that blank. And now that I look more carefully, I say, oh, his eyebrow doesn't go down that far. Also, you also know, if you've done portraiture, you can just keep fiddling forever and ever. And you probably don't want to do that. So I am just about finished. In spite of the loud band, that was very good. I keep saying that. They really were good. But really loud. In spite of that, I was fairly happy with my work last night. I actually got both faces, both portraits, closer to likeness in the acrylic stage than I normally do. So that was it wasn't by any means perfect, but in the acrylic stage, I got within shouting distance. And then when I switched to oil, I did this routine in oil, and felt like I was pretty much, you know, off to the races. Like I wasn't having to do ridiculous amounts of redrawing. Whew! You sure don't want to start scrubbing with a Series 7 with a tiny little #1 brush. So I just decided to lighten this area in front of his face. And now I really do need to paint with my left hand, and I'm not doing it. I did have one concern last night and again this morning when I looked at my painting. In the realm of composition, I'll back out in just a second. As soon as I finish this, I'm pretty happy with the way this is going. So I've just lightened the area in the front of his face, and that means I think I should lighten it at the back as well. All right, let me take off my double glasses. Once you sit back, everything gets pretty wonky. Let me adjust you guys a little bit again. All right, so just in finishing, oh, I know I didn't. I need to touch up this. They had the bride and groom's initials monogrammed on the dance floor, which is the second wedding in a row where I've seen that. I don't remember seeing it many times before. So maybe that's a new thing. I don't know. Bring you around so maybe you can get a little bit more front on. Yeah, my concern was in the realm of composition. Hello, Thinker888. If you were to do a portrait larger than your thumb, would you start abstract and go through layering, etc., or would you use some other process? Oh, that is a great question. The answer is yes. The answer is, great question, is that in the past, most of the time when I have done portraits, I have not done what you just described. Because I'm not that good, and because I take the easy way out. So the easy way out is to start with a blank canvas, tone it first of all, and then draw in oils. The reason that's the easiest is because the oils stay wet for a long time, and you can smudge, move, wipe out, add, subtract, and so forth. So oils are very forgiving. But you bring up a very good point, one that I had thought about myself. now that I've started doing these wedding portraits, where I do in fact start out with abstract and I do start in acrylics, I've thought, you know what? I bet I would be a better portrait painter if I followed my technique in doing the portrait. So that's the answer. When you go to dannelsonart.com and click on paintings, then open up the portraits file, of which there are 60 or 70 50, 60, 70 portraits, I don't remember. Most of them were done just oil on oil. Some of them were acrylic, oil on acrylic. But anyway, so good question. So I'm right in a period of growth adjustment myself, because I'm thinking, okay, time to man up, if you will, and start doing them in my native style and not being afraid to do them. So the oil on oil from the get-go is by far the easiest way to do portraits. But I think if I were to start doing them more my technique, I think they'd be more dynamic. They'd be more interesting. So, good question. I was going to say just before I go that I was a little concerned about the composition here, because it seemed a little flyaway. So I'll stop here by giving a quick review lesson about composition. When it comes to composition, we are talking about the major light and dark zones of a painting. And one of the rules, one of the ways to ask yourself, am I doing a good composition, is to ask yourself, are either the major light or dark areas, either one, can they be identified with a single word? And I was a little concerned about that. I think I'm okay. As I look at this now, the light area, and I've modified this a little bit this morning, the light area goes like this. So I would say the light area of this painting is a capital C, or what else? A spiral? No, a curl. In spite of the fact that his coat cuts into it pretty far, but in other words, I think it's hanging together fairly well. So that and I accentuated that a little bit this morning. In fact, what I just did by lightening around his face was actually, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, this would also help my composition a little bit. So in the final analysis, I think I was happy with it. Just before we go, I think I've done painting, but I'll show you some thoughts about this particular painting. My crowd of people down here and over here are slightly more abstract than my normal. I've touched them up a little bit this morning, not much, just a little bit. I can't even remember where, tiny bits. But strangely, is in spite of how abstract they are, it seems to be working for me. Again, in the context of the whole, it looks like, wedding guests at a party and people behind the bar. Again, why are they so tall and they're so small? The reason is because it's a low angle view. The viewpoint, the camera angle of this whole scene is about 4 feet off the floor, or about my belly button level. So when I was shooting them, I was looking up at them, and they are closer to us than everybody else. So they're smaller because the camera is pointing up. I'm not sure if that makes sense to you in perspective, but that's my excuse. That's my story. I'm going to stick with it. All I have to do here now is sign the painting and then paint the top and the bottom edges, which the sides are painted, but the top and the bottom are mostly blank. And I'm going to paint those with acrylics so they're dry. I'm going to put a wire on the back of it, It's about 2:15 and Sunday afternoon. Now, all of that will take me 25, maybe 30 minutes at the most, and I'll be done with this painting, except for photographing and delivering it. The bride and groom live in my town, Raleigh, even though we're all in Virginia for the wedding. So I'll deliver this to them sometime in the coming week. Thanks, you guys, for your company. If you like this, tell people that you know a good wedding painter, would you? And do look around the internet, search the internet for wedding painters. If you find somebody who's good, by all means let me know, because I'm looking for them. All right, thanks for